Hi guys, so today I'm going to be sharing with you my very first story time. I still cannot believe that this even happened to little old me, and I think this is like one of the craziest things that's actually happened in my life. I come from a very small town. I feel like a very normal person, but this for me was just crazy, and I've been wanting to film this for you guys for so many weeks. So as you can tell by the title, yes, I got to hang out with James Taylor from The Bachelorette, and let's start from the very beginning. So I was never one to get into The Bachelor or The Bachelorette until like this past season, JoJo's season, which is just funny to me. I guess it was kind of after my breakup, and I was like, you know what? I just want to watch like a really cutesy romantic show, and I actually caught JoJo's season like right in the middle, so I had to catch up on a ton of the episodes on like the ABC app or whatever station that's on. I think it's on ABC, right? But anyway, I ended up watching like 5 or 6 episodes on my little iPad, and then I caught up to like the live shows. And for the record, I feel weird saying it in this video, but I was team Chase. I really liked James Taylor too, but Chase like was my favorite for whatever reason. So I think it was after the show ended, James Taylor announced that he was going on tour, and he was actually coming to Cincinnati to a place called the Tin Roof. Now I'm really familiar with that area because it's right by the Reds ballpark, and so I texted my friend Brooke, who was really into The Bachelorette also, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's coming to town, we have to go. She immediately was like, yes, mark your calendars, and then we had to wait like 3 weeks until he was actually coming. So between the time we decided to go and the time he actually came, I ended up following him on Snapchat. I don't remember how it actually happened, but he was actually sharing a lot of like his travel things with us on Snapchat, and I thought it was really fun. So it was actually the day before he was actually gonna play, he was on his way, and I saw it on Snapchat. So let me get the exact dates for you guys. Hold on. So the day he was actually coming into Cincinnati was the 23rd of August, and then the 24th was his concert. So I wake up the morning of the 23rd, and my dad and I just happened to have Reds tickets. We go to a lot of games. I've said this before. We're huge Reds fans, and we're actually in 2 season ticket groups. One, which we call our good seats, which are down by first base. They're amazing, amazing seats. And then one that's up a little bit higher. So today, or this day that I'm talking about, we ended up having our good seats, which were right by first base. And also when we get our tickets, we have groups of 4. So my dad and I had 4 tickets to the game on the 23rd, and we only had 2 people to go. So when we were driving to work that day, I was in the passenger seat, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna tweet at James for the heck of it. So I went ahead and sent this tweet, and I'm like, hey James, you know, if you want to experience Cincinnati, I have 2 extra Reds tickets for tonight's game. And I was really excited because they were our good seats. I was like, it'd be crazy but fun if he actually went with us. I kid you not, I completely forgot I even sent that tweet. Like, I completely forgot by the time I got to work. So I'm going about my day as normal, and oh my gosh, like this is where stuff just starts getting crazy. So we get to work, and we're going throughout our day, and I'm like, okay, who's gonna go with us to this Reds game? Because like I said, I don't know how, but I completely forgot that I even said that on Twitter. So we're going throughout our day, and my dad's like, oh, I'll ask some people. And we ended up finding, it's kind of like our family friend. She works there, but her son also works at the same company. So it's gonna be me, my dad, her, and her son. I was really excited that they were going to go because they hadn't gone to a game with us before, and I'm like, it's just the more the merrier, I guess. It's going to be such a fun night. So I kid you not, my dad's like, hey Lacey, go get the tickets and give the 2 to the people who are going to go with us. And I was like, okay. So I go to my desk, I get the tickets, I hand them to her, and not 5 minutes later, I get on my phone, and I have tweets, and I have emails. It's saying, James Taylor replied to you, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I look at my phone, and of course he tweeted back, and he said, are you serious? We are totally down. Message me. And at that point, I kind of like freaked out because I'm like, what did I just do? We gave the tickets away. And he also followed me so we could direct message, and I just checked, and he's still following me on Twitter, which is just crazy. So, of course, I'm freaking out. I go to message him, and I literally say something like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you will never believe this, but we just gave the tickets away, but if you guys want to still come down, I'd be happy to show you around. And by guys, I mean him and his manager, because they were traveling together, and I knew that from Snapchat. So I don't have a screenshot of that first message because I sent it, and I was like, well, crap, like I just ruined all of my chances to hang out with James Taylor at the Reds game. And for some reason, I was like, I have to just go tell my dad this. So I go in his office, I start explaining it, and he is just dying. He is cracking up. He's like, you've got to be kidding me. So he immediately gets on the computer and he's like, you know what? Maybe we could just buy 2 tickets that are really close to where we're sitting and they can kind of sit with us because the Reds haven't been doing very good and there's always like open seats. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. But I already messaged him on Twitter and said that we didn't have the tickets anymore. So we're on there. We found some seats that were $20 a piece. So it would have been $40 altogether. And I'm like, I was so on the fence. I'm like, do we buy them? Do we not? But since he hadn't replied to my message yet, I'm like, don't buy them because I don't want to buy them and then be out $40 if they suddenly back out. So my mind is just racing and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I can't take back the message because I could have just bought the tickets and then said, yeah, I have 2, but I already said we didn't have them. So I was like stuck between a rock and a hard place, I felt like. So I was just like trying to figure out what to do for like the next half an hour. And I realized that you can delete Twitter messages and it actually, at least I think, deletes them from like them too. So if they hadn't looked at it already, they wouldn't be able to see it. So I ended up deleting that message. I sent him a picture of like me in my red shirt because I was like, that's kind of proof. Like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe someone out there would make this up, but I kind of wanted to show him that I wasn't. So I said something like, I'm already preparing for the game at work. And then I even said something as far as like, the game starts at 7:10, so I need to know by 5 so I can get you the tickets. And I was hoping you didn't see the original message because by that I meant the tickets that my dad and I were going to buy. Oh, and they're also playing the Rangers, which I thought was really funny because I think he's originally from Texas. So I sent that, let's see, at around like 3 or 4. And then about 10 minutes later, he ended up messaging me back and he was like, hey, can you call me? And he left me his phone number. I immediately was like, sure. And I called him right away and I ran outside at work and I'm on the phone. He picks up and it is that voice, like that super distinct voice. And he was so, so nice. I actually kept it together. I felt like I was pretty cool on the phone, but this is where stuff gets nuts because when I sent that original tweet, I tagged the Reds. He was explaining all of this to me over the phone and he said, you will never believe this, but because of my tweet, the Reds actually saw it, contacted him, and asked him to throw out the first pitch of the game that night. So he wanted to talk to me because he was really sorry he couldn't sit with us. And he was like, you know what? I was really excited, but now they asked me to do this and they were giving him like special seats because he was throwing out the first pitch and everything. So I was like, no, that is totally fine. I was so happy for him. I was like, oh my gosh, that is like an amazing opportunity. But he said we have to hang out after the game. Of course, I was totally down and I'm like, yes, I would love to. And he was like, you're gonna have to show us around Cincinnati. And I was like, okay, that's a lot of pressure. I actually told him that on the phone because I am not like a late night bar scene type person. So I'm like, where the heck am I going to take this guy? So we hang up the phone and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? Because I don't want to hang out with this guy by myself. I need like a partner in crime. So I went in to the office and by then like everyone that works there was like wanting to know all the details. So I'm like explaining it to everybody. And I'm like, Dad, what do? I need someone to go with me. And he was going to come with me to the game and I knew he wouldn't want to and that'd be weird. So I ended up calling my friend Brooke. She's the one that we were going to go to the concert together anyway, and I knew she was a super huge fan, so I actually call her, and I'm like, okay, you will not believe who I just got off the phone with. I told her everything. She was freaking out, and I'm like, will you please come with me? Please tell me that you don't have plans tonight. And thankfully, she didn't, so I was like, you know what? My dad and I will buy you one of those tickets that we were going to buy for James and his manager. You can come with us, and then afterwards, my dad can like either ride home with somebody, or I could ride with Brooke. I don't know. We were going to figure it all out. So I went in, and I told my dad that Brooke could go with me, and he's like, you know what? Just have Brooke use my ticket. I'll just head home and it's not a big deal. And I felt kind of bad because I was like, Dad, I want you to go to the game with us. But he was like, no, it's just way easier if it happens this way and I don't really care. So at this point, it was going to be me and Brooke going to the game with the people that we invited from work. So once we had everything ironed out, kind of, I was like, okay, like my mind was finally starting to settle down and I'm like, this is going to be a crazy night. And the huge, like hilarious thing about all of this is that I looked terrible that day. Like I woke up, I was on second day hair. My hair was in a bun. I had not worn eyeliner, and guys, I had worn eyeliner for like the last month or two every single day without fail, and I woke up that morning and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna wear mascara today. So my hair was a mess. I didn't have hardly any makeup on, and usually I don't care, but I was like, of all days where I didn't have time to go home and get ready, I'm gonna be hanging out with James Taylor. Really? But you know what? I was like, I'm gonna be confident anyway. I don't care. And I went ahead and like went on with my day. So I was still freaking out like the whole time, and I, after work, actually went to go pick up Brooke, and we headed down to the Reds game. So on our way down to the Reds game, we were talking, we were kind of hungry, and I'm like, you know what? We should totally go to Roost Chris for happy hour. This is like a hidden gym if you live in Cincinnati. Well, maybe not hidden anymore because it's gotten pretty darn crowded over the last couple years, but it's a great place for happy hour because it's a very expensive restaurant, but they have like really, really good food for $8. And I think it ends at like 6:30, so by the time you get your food and you eat, you can head over to the Reds game and kind of be right on time. I don't know why this didn't cross my mind, but we get down to Roost Chris, we're enjoying our food, and Brooke had never eaten there before, and I always talked about it, so I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. So we have our food, we're sitting there, and for some reason it just hits me, and I'm like, you know what? We're not even gonna see his first pitch. I was like, oh no, because that was the whole reason. And they always do the first pitch before the game. And usually, like when I go and we don't go to Roost Chris for happy hour, we get there really early and so we see it all. But because we were eating our food and everything, I'm like, you know what, we're gonna be getting there right when the game starts and we're gonna miss it. But I'm like, there's nothing we can do now. Let's just take our time, enjoy our food, and then we'll head over, and if we miss it, we miss it. So we get to the game, and of course, we have missed him throwing out the first pitch. And so I went ahead and texted him. I sent him a picture from where we were sitting, and I just said, oh my gosh, you won't believe this, but we missed your first pitch. So he actually texted me back and he said, oh man, glad y'all made it though. We are going to Grail after y'all coming. And he was talking about the Holy Grail. I knew exactly where that was. I had been there before. So I said, sounds great. We'll be there. Where are you guys sitting? And he never responded. So this is the point where I'm like, okay, things can go downhill pretty quickly because we were so excited, my friend Brooke and I, and we were just so nervous throughout the entire game, and we were just kind of waiting for it to be over so we could go hang out with James Taylor. So during the game, of course, we're checking his Snapchat like crazy, and towards the end, he actually posted one of him at the Tin Roof, which is where he was going to be playing the next night. So the Tin Roof is pretty much right next door to the Holy Grail, and I was like, well, that's kind of silly. He's not even at the game anymore. Like, he's not even going to see the end of it, but whatever. And so after the game ended, we knew he wasn't there anymore, and so I'm like, let's go put our stuff in the car, grab our wallets, and then I'll text him that we're on our way to the Holy Grail. So I went ahead and texted him we're on our way, and then we didn't really hear from him. And I'm like, you know what? If we don't hear from him, maybe we should like take a little detour and hang out and see if he says anything, because I don't know, I just didn't want to feel like we were standing there waiting for him and then like he never showed up. So my friend Brooke and I ended up going down to the park, which is just a little walk away. It's called Riverfront Park, and it's just right on the river, and they have these little swings that you can sit on. So we sat down on one of those. At this point, we were like trying to figure out what to do because like we saw on his Snapchat that he was at the Tin Roof actually. So I'm like, do we go there? But is that weird because he said we were going to go to the Holy Grail? So we're just talking, trying to figure out what to do. And eventually I was like, you know what? This is like a once in a lifetime chance. Let's just go up to the Holy Grail and see if he's there. Keep in mind, the Holy Grail is like a bar grill place, and I can honestly say I have never until then been to a bar like late at night. Like, that is just not me at all. I have never been one to like go out and do that kind of stuff, but it was like 10 or 10:30 by then, and so we go in and I felt so uncomfortable. I got a little water because I don't drink. My friend got something, and then we were kind of just like standing around, and we ended up walking outside. They have like an indoor part, but then an outdoor part with like a little fence. And we were just hanging out there talking, kind of just trying to see if he was there, which we kind of looked around when we walked in and he wasn't. So of course, as we're standing there, there's this guy and he comes up to us, and we had actually, well, not we, my friend Brooke knew him through like a mutual friend, but I don't think he knew that we kind of knew this mutual friend. So we were just talking, and then eventually 2 other people come up to us, and we're just kind of standing in this group. It wasn't bad. We were just having small talk, and ends up the 2 people that came over later, I actually work with a company that works with them. So it was just funny. We had like some stuff in common, and so we're standing there for quite a while. I'm drinking my little water. I mean, the conversation was okay. I remember looking at my friend Brooke like, what the heck is happening right now? But all of a sudden, we're like talking, and I see Brooke go, And lo and behold, it's James Taylor and his manager and like this other girl. And they're walking like into the tin roof. So it's kind of hard to explain, but this place where we were in this like outside area with the fence, but it's all connected. So since the tin roof was on that end, they were able to walk in this little fence down to the Holy Grail. And you just have to show your ID to like a guy sitting at like the entrance or whatever. So he walks right by us, didn't even notice us, but we knew he was in the building. So Brooke and I were like freaking out. So I'm like, okay, how do we end this conversation with these people? So we actually ended up talking to them for at least like 5 or 10 more minutes. And I thought that was good because I'm like, I don't want to just run up to this guy and be like, hey, I'm Lacey and we were waiting for you. So we ended up finishing our conversation and we went to the bathroom. And this is where Brooke and I just started freaking out because it was my time to like walk up to him and like be like, hey, I'm Lacey. And I don't know. I feel like whenever I'm in one of those situations, like something else takes over me and I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to do this and it's going to be good. So we come out of the bathroom. I see him standing there. His back's kind of towards us and I walk up to him. I tap him on the shoulder and I go, hey, I'm Lacey. And he goes, oh my gosh. And he gives me the biggest hug ever. And he just keeps like hugging me and then bringing me out and then hugging me. And he did that like 5 times. And he's like, oh my gosh, I am so glad you're here. And then I introduced my friend Brooke and he was introducing us to his manager and then actually another friend, and I can't remember who he was, but another friend of his that was in town and all of that stuff. So after all the hugs and all the introductions, he pulls this out of his pocket and he was like, I have been carrying this around with me all night and I wanted to give you the ball that I threw out for the first pitch. And I practically melted. I still can't believe it. I can't believe he gave me this. Holy crap. So we were just talking. We actually ended up talking to the manager and the friend a little bit more because James Taylor, I feel like people kind of knew who he was. So like people were pulling him aside and he did talk to us for quite a while, but it wasn't like the whole time at all. We really talked to the manager and the friend kind of about Cincinnati and like what to do, why they're here. And I mean, they were only going to be here for 2 days, but we're like, you have to get Skyline and you have to get Graders. And we were telling him about some places downtown to eat too. His manager is like his best friend. He told me that on the phone and you could just really tell how nice all of these people were, and we had like great conversation with them, and the place at that point wasn't very crowded, and James did come over and like talk to us quite a bit. And at one point I just thought it was so nice because he kind of took my head and he's like, oh my gosh, I love your little bun, because I had my hair up in a bun, and it was just so sweet because I had been worried like, oh my gosh, my hair looks terrible all day, and for him to point that out and say that, it was just so nice. And then he also was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so pretty, and he was just being so sweet. And at one point, which is the one thing that I regret out of this whole situation, he took me by the shoulders. He kind of like came over and he's like, come here, I want to talk to you. And I started to get up and I kind of looked at my friend because I didn't want to like leave her just talking to these people by herself, but I'm like, I can't miss this opportunity. And then kind of as I was getting up, another girl kind of swooped in and took him and they were talking, and I'm like, oh well, I'll just wait and he'll come back over. But he never did, so I never got to just talk one-on-one with him, and I still to this day wonder like what we would have talked about if he had actually pulled me aside. So we ended up staying and talking a little bit more, and the funny thing is the manager actually said to us when we were standing there, he's like, guess who we are going to dinner with tomorrow night? And I'm like, who? And he's like, Andy Dalton, who is the quarterback for the Bengals. And I thought that was so funny. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, believe it or not, James and I, they must have been friends for a really long time, because he said when they were in high school back in Texas, they were in high school with Andy Dalton, and he's like, you'll never believe it, but in high school Andy was like this really skinny, just tall glass of water. This is what James was telling us, and it was just funny because it was really neat that they were in town, and then with Andy there, I don't know, they were gonna go to dinner to a really nice place before his concert the next day. So we kind of started talking about the concert and that my friend Brooke and I had been planning on going for a long time, and he's like, you guys should come early and come and like backstage with us in the beginning or like before the show. And my friend Brooke kind of laughed and she's like, I don't know about that, because the tin roof place where they were playing was tiny, and we were just like joking around. He's like, well, maybe not in the back, but you can hang out with us before the show. So at that point it was getting a little late, so my friend and I were like, okay, we need to head home. So we went over to James kind of just to say bye, and we're like, we'll see you tomorrow, but can we have a picture before we leave, because I don't know, we have to document all of this stuff. So he was more than happy to take some pictures with us, which I will insert now, and we also even posted some stuff on Snapchat.
So my two girls right here,
Look at this.
having fun in Cincy, and this is the ball that I threw out for the first pitch, and she's the one who got it. So my two girls right here, kaboom, kaboom, and she got me here to the game, and that's her friend. I love these girls. Love y'all. Wish y'all were here.
and it was just so much fun. And at that point, I was like, I think he even mentioned it because we were holding the ball in the picture, which the picture of me and him is not the best, which is kind of why I never posted it, but whatever. But he's like, we should sign this. And I'm like, well, I don't need to. You should just sign it. And we ended up trying to find a pin, but we couldn't. And so we never ended up signing it. I kind of wish he would have, but I mean, I still got this anyway, which I still can't believe. So I ended up just taking the photos and leaving. And at some point during that night, he was like, you have my phone number. You better use it. I expect to hear something from you tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, I mean, if you're asking me to text you, of course I will. So the next day comes and I dress very nicely. I actually do my hair and my makeup this time around because the concert was that night and I was going straight from work. So after lunch that day, I mean, he told me to text him. So I sent something like, it was so great meeting you last night. We're really excited for tonight. And I kind of told him that I got off work at 5 just to see what he'd say because I was kind of fishing for like if he was going to ask us to do anything beforehand. And I also asked him what they were doing before the concert and he said just eating dinner and good, I can't wait to see you either. And I said, well, have fun. I think we're going to be hanging out downtown, so maybe I'll just let you know when we get there. And he said, sounds perfect. So after work, I ended up meeting Brooke and her friend down at the Yard House at a restaurant, and we ended up eating dinner. And we were really early, so then we kind of took another walk around Riverfront Park, and I hadn't heard from him. So we ended up going to the Tin Roof still pretty early, like at least an hour to an hour and a half early, because the place is small and they do have tables. So we were thinking if we get there early, we could get a table and not have to stand. But of course, the place was already packed. And as we were walking in, I did text him. I heard nothing. Nothing at all. And we're standing there. It's getting more and more crowded. It's getting closer to showtime. Still nothing, which I was a little bummed about. I'm not going to lie. And then we were kind of checking his Snapchat and it showed him at dinner. And they kind of, I think, ended up leaving dinner right before the show because the place they were actually eating at Ruth's Chris, which is funny because Brooke and I were just there. But we knew that it was just a couple doors down. So we're like, you know what? He's probably just going to eat dinner and come straight to the show, which is what ended up happening. So he goes on stage. We're kind of standing like kind of close to the front, but I was getting like kind of lightheaded. I'm not going to lie because I think there were so many people and it was getting really hot. And so we actually stood in the crowd of people, mostly girls, for quite a while. I ended up getting some water and I kind of tried to make eye contact with him a lot to see if he would like see me, but he didn't.
Cold beer on a Wednesday night, there titties the bitch just right, and what radio, like to see the sunrise.
And then at one point we're like, okay, we're over this. He was still playing and the show was good. And he actually even told a lot of stories about the house, like while he was on The Bachelorette, which was fun. But we ended up moving outside kind of toward the back, kind of halfway through because we were just kind of over the whole crowd thing. And I'm saying kind of a lot. So we were just hanging out there. And then eventually we kind of went inside and stood in the back and everything. And Andy Dalton actually came to the concert as well. And then at that point, it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I could tell that Brooke and her friend were kind of getting to the point where they wanted to leave. And he kept saying during the show, like, if you guys stay after I'm meeting every single one of you, I'm not going to leave until I do, which is very kind of him. But I was like so torn because obviously I didn't want to stay down there. If my friends went home, I would be all by myself and I just knew that wasn't the safest thing to do. And since we really hadn't heard from him all day, I was kind of over it. So when they looked at me and they were ready to leave, I'm like, I'm leaving too because I'm not staying by myself. So we ended up leaving. I kind of was like, well, crap. I kind of felt like I missed out on another opportunity to see him in a way because I'm like, this is the only time in my whole life that I'll probably have this opportunity, but I just knew I couldn't stay with my friends being gone. I knew that that was the right thing to do. So I headed home and I went to bed, and the next morning I remember waking up and being like, well, I wonder how last night went. And then it was one of those things where I was like hoping he would have texted me, and I was like checking my phone really slowly and I'm like, there's no way. And then I actually pick up my phone and he had. All he said was, hey, and it was at like, I don't know, super early in the morning. And so then I woke up and I was like, gosh, he was actually thinking about me. He texted me and I don't know if he was wanting to hang out, who knows. But anyway, I ended up texting back and just saying sorry about last night. The show was really great. And I don't know, he was actually way better in person, like singing wise, than I even thought. And then I was kind of like down that day because I don't know, I was just, I guess, getting my hopes up like this whole time he was in town, and I'm like, maybe like we'll hang out and we'll be friends and all that. But that day later, I remember going out with my mom for lunch and everything, and I was like, maybe he'll ask me to hang out before they go out of town, because I think they were going to Indianapolis next. So my last ditch effort, I have it on here, I was like, I don't know what time you guys are leaving, but I'm off today if you want to go get ice cream or something, because the night we were at the Holy Grail, we were talking about graders and how they had to try it. But no response at all. I still have not heard from him since, which is a little disappointing, but I get it. He's on tour, he's got a lot going on, but still, like, this whole experience for me was one of the most exciting, and definitely the night at the Holy Grail when he gave me this, that was totally the highlight. I feel like I'm terrible at story times. I hope I explained that really well, but that was everything that consisted of my night with James Taylor, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, he really truly was a very sweet person, and this is something that I won't forget for a really long time. Please give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or you were a James Taylor fan. But I don't know, I like doing story times. Maybe I'll have to think of a few more. Like I said, nothing crazy usually happens to me, but if I do think of something, I'll be sure to do one of these again. But I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!